of Joker Folie is going to go down in history as one of the most depressing stories, maybe the most depressing in sequel history, in comic book movie history, and just in movies in general. This is a movie, guys. This is a movie that we were all excited for. Do you guys remember the excitement? I miss those days. But we were all excited. I was there. I know it was real. In fact, if you go back to just a month ago, this is just a month ago, Joker Folie was tracking to open at $70 million. This is just back in September that they were saying that this thing was going to open to $70 million. And it didn't even make half of that. Or actually, you know what? It kind of did. It made $37 million on its opening weekend. And we talked about that last week. We talked about just how terrible of an opening that was. And also last week, we talked about how now we're just waiting to see how the damage is going to go. How is the damage going to go for this movie? And guys, the damage came down hard on Joker Folie. We also talked about last week that we might be living in a world very soon where Terrifier 3, little itty bitty movie from 2016, made for like $35,000, now going into its second sequel, its third entry in the franchise. We talked about how we could be living in a world where that movie takes the #1 spot from Joker. And guys, it did. We now live in that world because, as Variety says, Terrifier 3 tops the box office with an $18 million debut as Joker Folie collapses with a brutal, emphasis on that word, brutal, 81% drop. Oh, this is bad, guys. For Joker, anyways. Here's what they have to say. There's only room for one killer clown at the top of the box office charts. Terrifier 3 slashed its way to #1 in the North American, collecting a stellar $18.3 million from 2,514 theaters in its opening weekend. It's a huge start for the ultra-gory, independently made, low-budget slasher film about a demonic clown who brutalizes a small town. Meanwhile, Joker Folie, which topped the box office last weekend, if you can even say that, it was very, very poor, collapsed. Guys, it didn't just collapse to #2. It didn't even collapse to #3. In its second weekend, Joker Folie collapsed to 4th place with $7 million in its opening weekend. It's been said all week. It can't be said enough. That is bonkers insane. Again, guys, this was a movie at one point that was being projected to open at $70 million. And I don't even think it's made $70 million its entire run at this point. I could be wrong about that. I digress. But going forward, it says, the musical starring Joaquin Phoenix as a reclusive stand-up comedian and part-time clown suffered a tragic 81% decline in ticket sales from its already disastrous $37.6 million debut. It ranks as one of the biggest second weekend drops for the superhero genre, plunging more severely than last year's misfires of the Marvels, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and The Flash. Okay. So there's two stories here. And we're gonna start with the train wreck. For starters, because Joker Folie is one of the biggest disasters, biggest bombs, biggest flops I think I've ever really witnessed in my life. If we're really talking about it, think of this movie, how it was $1 billion franchise in the first one. Anyways, it made $1 billion. It won Oscars. It was nominated for 11. It won Joaquin Phoenix the Best Actor. They came back. They gave it a $200 million budget. And this thing, I don't even think it's broken $100 million in the domestic box office right now. $1 billion, and it hasn't even cracked $100 million in the domestic box office. That is hugely, hugely disappointed. If you're the studio, you're crying. You're crying big tears right now. If you're Todd Phillips and you're Joaquin Phoenix, you're probably sweating a little bit for what how the studio is going to respond to this, because this is huge. I was reading reports. Joker Folie is going to lose the studio like $150 million to $200 million. Don't underestimate how big of a. We may never see. I'm serious. We may never see this big of a flop in our entire lifetime. 81% of the audience abandoned this thing in its second weekend. It didn't even crack. It just got into the top 5. I don't think it's going to be in the top 5 next weekend. It's a disaster. It's beyond a disaster. It's wrecked. It's totaled. There's no coming back from this. This thing is a dumpster fire. And I don't even hate the movie that much. I mean, like, I didn't particularly love it, but I do think there's elements of it. I've defended it. I've been a little bit of a defender on the channel. If you've been watching the channel for a little bit, I've been a defender of Joker Folie, but I can't defend this. I can't defend this. This is horrible. It's a horrible look for Todd Phillips. It's a horrible look for Joaquin Phoenix. And I'll tell you what, it's embarrassing. Beyond just a bad look, this is an embarrassment. Hugely embarrassing. And like I said last week, we're just going to have to see how much worse it can get, which I can't even fathom how much worse this could get. But let's talk about the positive side of this story, because this is Terrifier. This is Terrifier's story. This is his triumphant. Now, I'm not a fan of the Terrifier franchise. I saw the first one back in 2018 before the big Art the Clown boom when Terrifier 2 came out, and now he's just like this horror icon that's emerged. Like, everybody loves Art the Clown. Everyone knows Art the Clown. I was there when he was just still being discovered, so that's kind of cool. But I didn't really enjoy the movie all that much. Thought it was kind of gross. It was just not my content, just not my thing. But what's really impressive about Terrifier, especially this opening weekend of 18 million, is that this is a movie franchise that's, I mean, it's a lot of money to the people who make it because it's independently, but this is pocket change that's being made. The first one was made for like $35,000. I believe this one had a $2 million budget, and it made nearly $20 million on its opening weekend. That's great. That is really, really, really good for If you're a Terrifier, you're popping bottles. If you worked on that film, you are celebrating. And mind you, that this took over the top spot of a highly produced $200 million Warner Brothers production movie. And also, mind you, in this article, it opened to 2,514 theaters. Joker had nearly double that. 4,102. Just about double. And it knocked it down to 4th. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. If you didn't know Terrifier, you know it now. It's making headlines. Studios know about it. They're talking about it. This is a huge, huge win for everyone involved over at Terrifier. As much as I don't care for the movies, they should all be proud. And a lot of fans came out to support, and it showed. And it really showed. People like this franchise. And yeah, they're talking about a 4th and a 5th. They're most certainly now going to get a 4th and a 5th. I doubt they even stop there. I'm sure it'll go beyond that. But as far as Joker goes, whew, man, I can't imagine this getting any worse. But it will. Can you believe there was a time that we were talking about this movie? Hey, do you think it can make $1 billion again? Oh, we were such fools.